Hey, welcome back and thanks for joining me. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
I came home on a Tuesday afternoon still smelling like airport disinfectant and military-grade instant coffee. My deployment bag was heavier than it should have been. My shoulders sore, my patience thin. But I was still stupidly expecting a hug at the front door. Maybe a banner. Maybe my mom crying. Maybe my dad pretending not to cry. I didn't need a parade. Just proof that the last 14 months meant something to the people whose last name I share. The front door was unlocked. No one even bothered to close it properly. I stepped inside and immediately tripped over a stack of pink shoeboxes with gold lettering. Something French, something expensive, something that definitely wasn't government issued. I dragged my duffel past a tower of garment bags, a ring light on a tripod, and a rolling rack packed with glitter dresses. My boots left dust on the marble floor. The marble floor that used to be normal hardwood before my sister discovered aesthetic home upgrades. "Hello," I called. My mom's voice floated from the kitchen, "Elena." "Is that you? Hold on, honey." She appeared 2 seconds later, wiping her hands on a dish towel that cost more than my entire mess hall monthly budget. She hugged me fast, quick, polite, like greeting a cousin you see once a year and don't remember well. "Oh my God, you're home," she said. "You look thinner. Deployment will do that." Behind her, my dad was sitting at the kitchen island scrolling on his phone with the intensity of a man monitoring stock prices. He glanced up. "Hey kiddo, welcome back." No hug, no getting up, just a nod, like I'd returned from a weekend camping trip, not a conflict zone. I smiled anyway. Old habit, military courtesy. Don't show disappointment, don't make it awkward. The family had that covered already. "I'm gonna put my things in my room," I said. My mom froze. My dad cleared his throat. That's when I knew something was wrong. Families don't freeze like that unless someone's about to confess a crime or an affair. Or both. "Sweetheart," my mom said carefully, "about your room." We walked down the hallway. My boots made dull thuds on the floor. At the end of the hall, the door to my room stood wide open, except it wasn't my room anymore. It was a warehouse for my sister's fashion empire. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, mannequins missing heads, fabric rolls leaning against my old bookshelf. My childhood posters were gone. My bed was gone. My desk was gone. Even my cheap little lamp from high school was gone. In its place, a folding table covered in makeup brushes and invoices, a rack of designer jackets, a neon sign that read, "Chloe Vance Collection." I blinked twice to confirm I wasn't hallucinating from lack of sleep. "This is my room," I said. My mom clasped her hands together. Chloe needed space for her brand launch. Just temporary, you understand. I turned to my dad. "Where was I supposed to sleep?" He shrugged. "We figured you'd get a hotel for a few days. You have savings, right? Military pays decent." It doesn't. But explaining federal pay scales to a man who bought a smart fridge with a touchscreen felt like a losing battle. I nodded once. Again, habit. At that moment, heels clicked down the hallway like gunfire in a luxury mall. Chloe appeared. My sister, 2 years younger, perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect Instagram feed. She wore a silk robe even though it was 3 p.m. A phone was in one hand, a latte in the other. She smelled like perfume and entitlement. She looked me up and down, my worn boots, my dusty uniform, my deployment bag. Her face twisted. "Oh," she said. "You came back in that. In what?" She pointed at my uniform like it was a biohazard. "That outfit? You look like a background character in a war movie." I kept my face still. "It's my service uniform." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, the outfit of a loser." My mom gasped softly, but not enough to be useful. My dad looked at his phone again, pretending he didn't hear it. Chloe stepped past me into what used to be my room. She lifted a hanger and examined a jacket. "By the way," she said without looking at me, "keep things chill tonight. I'm meeting an investor. Big deal. Don't embarrass me with whatever military energy you've got going on." Military energy, like it was a contagious disease. I stared at my old doorway. The doorframe still had the height marks my dad used to draw when I was a kid. They were covered now by a poster of Chloe posing next to a sports car that didn't belong to her. I turned away before I said something that would make this family even more ridiculous than it already was. "I'll get my car into the garage," I said. "Then I'll head out," Chloe laughed. "Oh no," she said. "My SUV is in the garage. You can park outside." I followed her to the front. Her white SUV sat in the garage like a throne on wheels. My old car was at the curb, dusty and dented, held together by loyalty and cheap maintenance. "You want me to leave my car on the street?" I asked. She sipped her latte. "Yeah. It doesn't match the vibe of the house. The vibe, not safety, not weather, not security. The vibe." I looked at my parents. My mom smiled nervously. My dad said, "It's just for tonight, Elena. Don't start anything. Start anything." I'd spent months in places where starting anything could get people killed. Here, starting anything meant hurting Chloe's mood before her fashion meeting. I walked to my car, dropped my duffel in the back seat, and leaned against the door for a moment. "And that's when I want to ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room where you'd earned your place through sweat, pain, and sacrifice, and still been treated like you were the inconvenience? Because if you have, you already know what that moment feels like." I stood up straight, walked back inside, and asked, "Where am I supposed to stay tonight?" My mom avoided my eyes. "We thought maybe the couch. But Chloe has an early shoot tomorrow, so the living room might be busy." Busy with photos, not people. Photos. I looked around my childhood home. Everything was shinier, cleaner, more expensive, and somehow colder than any barracks I'd ever slept in. Chloe walked past me again, checking herself in her phone camera. "By the way," she said, "don't tell anyone I used your room for storage. People online think I have a walk-in studio. It's branding." "Branding, right," I nodded once. Not because I agreed, but because I was tired. And because sometimes silence is the only way to keep from laughing in a house that stopped making sense years ago. I sat down on the edge of a couch that used to be comfortable and was now covered in white fabric to protect it from color contamination. My parents returned to the kitchen. Chloe disappeared upstairs. The house hummed with appliances I didn't recognize and ambitions I didn't share. And I realized I wasn't just home. I was a stranger in my own house. I stayed on that couch staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize anymore, until the house settled into evening quiet and everyone acted like I didn't exist. My mom eventually went upstairs. My dad followed. Chloe's laughter drifted from her room, talking to someone on speakerphone about fabric samples and launch vibes. No one asked if I'd eaten. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked anything at all. That was fine. I didn't come home for attention. I came home to rest. So I got up and went to find the only thing in this house that still belonged to me. The hallway was dim. My old bedroom door stood open, glowing with the light of a vanity mirror, surrounded by round bulbs. Chloe had installed a mini Hollywood inside my childhood. I stepped carefully between boxes and hangers. My boots were still on. I didn't bother taking them off. This floor had already lost its innocence. In the corner beneath a rack of sequined dresses sat a small wooden chest. Scratched, plain, no logo, no brand, no aesthetic. My box, the one I'd carried through 3 bases and 2 deployments. The one I never opened in front of anyone. Not because I was dramatic, but because some things earn privacy. I knelt and pulled it toward me. The latch clicked open. The box was empty. Not half empty, not disorganized, completely empty. Lined with dark blue velvet. No bronze star. No purple heart. No campaign ribbons. No folded note from my old commanding officer. Nothing. Just a clean bare box. For a second I wondered if I'd lost them myself. Maybe in transit, maybe in storage. Maybe I'd moved them somewhere and forgot. I ran through every memory, every base, every duffel, every footlocker. No, I knew exactly where I left them. Right here. I closed the box, opened it again, as if the metals might magically reappear if I gave them a second chance. Still empty. I stood up and scanned the room. Chloe's version of my room. The rack of clothes, the makeup table, the shelves stacked with influencer mail packages, the closet doors replaced with mirrored panels. If something went missing in this house, the answer was usually Chloe. I wasn't angry yet. I was in investigation mode. The army trains you to do that. Observe first, react later. I walked to Chloe's dresser, 6 drawers, each labeled with a gold sticker, tops, bottoms, accessories, important. I opened the important drawer. Inside were passports, credit cards, jewelry, and a folded piece of paper with bold black print. Pawn receipt. My fingers picked it up slowly. Ease cash pawn, date 3 weeks ago. Item military medals. Set amount $2,000. $2,000. My Bronze Star alone had taken 6 months of operations, 2 injured teammates, and a night I still didn't talk about. My Purple Heart came from a roadside blast that put shrapnel in my leg and a scar on my hip. And their combined worth in Chloe's world was the price of a cheap luxury handbag and a first-class selfie. I read the signature line, Seller C. Vance, not even a fake name, not even shame, just my sister's neat little handwriting. I put the receipt in my pocket and closed the drawer. No yelling, no shaking, no dramatic gasping, just clarity. I stepped out of the room and walked downstairs. The kitchen light was still on. My dad sat at the island watching a game show. My mom was loading the dishwasher. I placed the empty box on the counter. "Where are my medals?" I asked. My mom froze with a plate in her hands. My dad muted the TV. Chloe walked in right on cue, still in her silk robe, phone in hand. "What's with the box?" she asked. I pulled the pawn receipt from my pocket and set it beside the box. "You tell me." Chloe glanced at the paper. Her face didn't change. No guilt, no panic, no embarrassment. Just mild irritation at being confronted. "Oh," she said. "Yeah, I sold them." My mom put the plate down too slowly. My dad blinked once. Chloe kept scrolling on her phone. "You sold my medals," I repeated. "Relax," Chloe said. "They were just sitting there." My dad cleared his throat. "Elena, maybe we should talk about this calmly." Calmly, right. I looked at Chloe. "Those medals represent military service. They're federal property in some cases. Selling them is illegal." She waved a hand. "They're not guns, Elena. They're medal circles. No one cares." My mom stepped in. Chloe had a little financial problem. She needed help. "You're her sister." I looked at my mother. "So your solution was to let her sell my military awards." My mom's voice got small. "We didn't think you'd mind. You weren't using them. Not using them. Like they were a blender, or a treadmill, or a jacket from last season." My dad leaned forward. "You make decent money, Elena. You could always earn more medals." I stared at him. "That's not how that works." Chloe finally put her phone down. "Look, I had debt from my trip to Mykonos. I already posted all the photos. I couldn't just not pay the hotel. That would ruin my brand, her brand, not her education, not her job, not her future, her brand." I held up the receipt. $2,000. She nodded. "Yeah, that's a good deal, honestly. Pawn guy said military stuff sells fast." I imagined a glass counter with my medals, lying under fluorescent lights next to stolen wedding rings and busted laptops. I felt something shift in my chest. Not sadness, not rage, a clean, sharp understanding. I was not living in the same reality as these people. I looked at my parents. "Did either of you tell her this was wrong?" My dad sighed. "We didn't want to stress her out before the launch." My mom added, "You're the strong one, Elena. You can handle things." I nodded slowly, not because I accepted it, but because I'd learned something important in that moment. They weren't just favoring Chloe, they were invested in her, financially, emotionally, socially, and I was background noise in my own family. Chloe picked up her latte again. "Anyway, don't worry, I'll make it up to you when my brand takes off." I stared at her, then at my parents, then at the empty box, and I quietly slid the box back into my hands, feeling how light it was now, how easy it was to carry something that had once been heavy, with meaning. I turned toward the hallway, the receipt still in my pocket. The box in my arms, my boots steady on the marble floor. No one stopped me. No one called my name. No one apologized. And that told me everything I needed to know. I carried the empty box down the hallway and set it on the coffee table like it was evidence in a case that had already been decided. Chloe didn't follow me right away. She took her time, let the silence stretch, let me sit there like a guest waiting for an appointment. My parents stayed in the kitchen, whispering just loud enough to make sure I knew they were discussing me, not the crime. Finally, Chloe walked into the living room and dropped onto the couch across from me. She crossed her legs, checked her reflection in her phone camera, and smiled at herself. "You're being dramatic," she said. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "You sold federal military decorations that were awarded to me for service. Do you understand what that means?" She frowned. "You keep saying it like it's a big deal. It is a big deal." She tilted her head. "To who old guys at the VFW? They're not your audience. I am." I waited for a hint of empathy, a crack, a flinch, anything human, nothing. She reached over and grabbed a throw pillow, hugging it like she was the victim in this situation. "I needed the money," she said. You've always had everything handed to you. Scholarships, military benefits, free healthcare. You're basically a government-sponsored adult. I blinked once. I earned every part of that. Chloe smirked. By playing soldier. Congrats. I took a slow breath. Not for calm, for control. My dad appeared in the doorway, hands in his pockets. My mom hovered behind him like a nervous assistant manager. Girls, my dad said, let's not escalate. I looked at him. She committed fraud and sold stolen property. My mom stepped forward. Elena, please. Chloe didn't mean any harm. Chloe raised her eyebrows. Yeah, harm is like war stuff. This is business. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I pulled the pawn receipt out again and held it up. This is proof. If I walk into a police station with this, Chloe gets arrested. My mom's face strained of color. My dad lifted a hand. Now hold on. Chloe sat up straighter. You wouldn't try me. For the first time, Chloe's expression shifted. Not guilt, fear. Not for what she'd done, but for what it might cost her. My dad stepped between us. Elena, be reasonable. We can solve this as a family. I looked around. Which part of this family exactly? My mom put a hand on my arm. Sweetheart, we know you're upset, but Chloe is under a lot of pressure. This brand launch is her future. I removed my arm gently. And my future, my mom's eyes flickered. You'll be fine. You always are. There it was, the family philosophy. Chloe breaks things. Elena absorbs the damage. Chloe dreams. Elena adjusts. Chloe shines. Elena steps out of the light. I nodded slowly. So your solution is to let her sell my metals, break the law, and I just move on. My dad sighed. We'll pay you back with what I asked. More fake apologies. Another room downgrade. Maybe next time she needs money, she can sell my car or my kidney. Chloe rolled her eyes. God, you're exhausting. I turned to her. Do you feel bad at all? She leaned back into the couch. I feel bad that you're making this such a thing. You never know how to support me. My mom jumped in quickly. Chloe didn't grow up as strong as you. She needs more care. I looked at my mother. You mean more excuses? My dad's tone hardened. Watch your mouth. I looked at him. Watch your daughter. Silence hit the room like a door slamming. Chloe stood up suddenly. She walked over to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, close enough to see that there was no apology behind her eyes. If you can't handle how this family works, she said, maybe you shouldn't be here. I didn't move. I'm not the one who stole. Her hand came up fast, a sharp slap across my cheek. Not hard enough to knock me down, hard enough to make a point. My mom gasped. My dad shouted Chloe's name, but neither of them stepped between us. I touched my cheek once, no tears, no trembling, just a pulse of heat under my skin. Chloe pointed toward the front door. Get out, she said. If you don't know how to share with family, you don't belong here. My dad walked to a closet, pulled out a black trash bag, and shoved a pile of clothes into it. My clothes. Whatever was left of them after Chloe had raided my room for borrowed basics. He handed me the bag. Take this, he said. Go cool off. Don't come back until you've learned how to prioritize family. I stared at the trash bag. Not a suitcase, not a box, a trash bag. My mom avoided my eyes. Chloe smirked. My dad crossed his arms like he'd just solved a problem. I stood up, took the bag, took the empty metal box, took one last look at the house that no longer felt like a house. No dramatic speech, no threats, no plea. I walked to the door, opened it, stepped out. The night air hit my face. Cool, clear, real. I walked to my car parked on the street, the one that didn't match the vibe. I put the trash bag in the back seat, placed the empty box carefully beside it, sat behind the wheel. For a moment, I just breathed. Not angry, not broken, just awake. I started the engine and drove away from the only family I'd ever known, with nothing in my hands but a receipt, an empty box, and a decision forming quietly in my mind. I followed the highway lights until the city thinned out and the radio stopped pretending it knew what I needed. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't go back to base. I didn't call my parents. I drove to the only person I trusted who wouldn't ask stupid questions. Marcus Reed opened his front door in sweatpants and an old unit t-shirt holding a half-eaten burrito. Elena, he said, you look like you just won a war or started one. Can I crash here for a bit? He stepped aside. Always. Marcus was former Army intelligence, Now he ran cybersecurity for a private firm that charged corporations ridiculous money to tell them their passwords were password 123. Then, his house smelled like coffee-soldered electronics and leftover discipline. I dropped my trash bag of clothes on the floor, put the empty metal box on the kitchen table, sat down. Marcus didn't ask questions right away. That's why I came. He just handed me a mug of coffee and waited. After 3 sips, I said, "My sister sold my medals." He blinked once. "Your combat medals. Pawn shop, $2,000. He stared at the empty box, then the receipt I placed beside it. "That's illegal," he said. "I know. Identity-linked military decorations. Fraud, theft, potential federal offense. I know." He leaned back in his chair. "So why aren't we at a police station?" I looked at him. "Because I want to know how far this goes before I pull the trigger." Marcus smiled slightly. "Not humor, respect." "All right," he said. "Operation Family Disaster." "What's the objective?" I answered without hesitation. "Find out what else she's done using my name." Marcus's fingers moved to his laptop like a pianist who only played songs that ruined lives. "You have any evidence besides the pawn receipt?" I handed him my phone. She had access to my room, my documents, my ID copies, everything. He nodded. "That's enough to start." He opened programs I'd never seen outside secure rooms, databases, financial trackers, public record aggregators, credit monitoring systems. He typed my name, Elena Vance, date of birth, social security number, military service status. His screen populated with clean records. Then he dug deeper, checking for credit inquiries, he said. A new window popped up. 1 inquiry, 2, 3, 5. Marcus whistled softly. "That's not normal," he said. "Show me." He turned the laptop toward me. Multiple loan applications, all in my name, all within the last 8 months, all approved. Total amount just over $120,000. I stared at the numbers. "These aren't bank loans," Marcus said. "These are private lenders, high interest, short term. Some of them operate in states you've never lived in." He clicked deeper. "Look at this one," he said. Signature uploaded. He enlarged the document. It was my name, my handwriting style, but not my writing. "She forged my signature," I said. Marcus nodded. "And attached a copy of your military ID." I thought about my room, my files, my locked drawer that apparently wasn't locked enough. My sister hadn't just sold my medals. She'd been wearing my identity like another outfit in her closet. Marcus leaned forward. "These lenders aren't normal finance companies. 2 of them are under investigation for organized fraud rings. If payments stop, they don't send polite reminders. They send people. People, I repeated. "Not customer service people," Marcus said. "Real ones." I sat back. My parents' house. My parents still living there. My sister planning to disappear to Europe. And debt collectors who didn't care who actually signed the paperwork. I closed my eyes for 1 second. "No longer. Keep going," I said. Marcus smiled. "That's the spirit." He opened property records. "Your parents' house," he said. "Owned jointly by Robert and Martha Vance. No mortgages. Paid off years ago." He clicked again. A new document appeared. Lien filing. Home used as collateral for a foreign investment project. Authorization signed. By me, or rather my forged name. Marcus zoomed in on the signature. "It's the same fake handwriting," he said. I stared at the document. My parents' home. The only stable asset in this mess. The place that now stored designer shoes and ego. My sister had used it as leverage. Marcus tapped the screen. "If that investment defaults, the house gets seized." I exhaled slowly. Not dramatic, not emotional, just clarity stacking on top of clarity. My sister wasn't just selfish. She was dangerous. Not with fists. Not with weapons. With paperwork lies and the kind of confidence that comes from never being held accountable. Marcus leaned back. "There's more. Go on." He pulled up travel records. Chloe booked a one-way international flight. 3 weeks from now. Destination Milan. I pictured her silk robe, her latte, her brand launch, her careless laugh in my old bedroom. She wasn't planning a vacation. She was planning an exit. Leaving my parents with debt they didn't understand, creditors they couldn't handle, and a house that might not belong to them much longer. Marcus closed the laptop halfway. "This isn't sibling drama anymore, Elena. This is a federal fraud case tied to military identity misuse." I nodded. "I know." He watched me carefully. "What do you want to do?" I didn't raise my voice. Didn't pound the table. Didn't give a revenge monologue. I just said I want everything documented. Marcus opened the laptop again. We'll compile evidence, financial records, forged signatures, loan trails, pawn receipt, travel plans. We'll build a clean file. And then Marcus smiled slow and sharp. Then we take it to someone who actually outranks your sister's ego. I looked at the empty metal box on the table, not with nostalgia, not with sadness, but as a reminder that someone thought I'd never push back. They were wrong. Marcus slid a folder toward me, blank for now, waiting. I picked up the folder. My hands were steady, and the hunt began quietly without shouting, without drama, without anyone in my family realizing the ground under their perfect home had already started to shift. I watched Marcus scroll through my family's future like it was a bad spreadsheet nobody wanted to open. He didn't talk much while he worked. Just typed, highlighted, and saved files into folders labeled with cold, neat names. Evidence, transactions, signatures, property, travel. The kind of organization that turns chaos into court exhibits. Let's map the house situation fully, he said. I nodded. He opened county property databases, tax records, ownership history. Lines of data that looked boring until you realized they controlled where people slept at night. The house is still under your parents' names, Marcus said. But 3 months ago, someone filed a power of attorney document giving authority to manage the property. He clicked the file open. My name, my forged signature, my stolen identity. Marcus tapped the screen. This allowed whoever signed it to use the house as collateral without your parents needing to show up in person. I leaned closer. They didn't even know. Marcus shook his head. Elderly fraud tactics. Paperwork filed digitally. They probably thought they were signing something else Chloe told them was business-related. I pictured my mom signing forms at the kitchen island while Chloe said, just helping the brand. Mom and my dad nodded without reading a single page. Marcus opened another document. Mortgage lien. High-risk foreign investment fund. Interest rate that should come with a warning siren. If this investment doesn't pay out, Marcus said, the lender can legally claim the house. When does it default? Marcus checked the date. 60 days. I let that number sit in my head. 2 months. My parents would lose their home, not because they were unlucky, not because of a market crash, because their favorite child treated reality like a game app with unlimited resets. Marcus pulled up another tab. What I asked. Cross-referencing payments, he said. He clicked. Your sister hasn't paid the last 2 installments on those private loans. That means collection status activates soon. Some of these lenders outsource enforcement. Enforcement, I repeated. Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. Harassment, threats, property pressure. Sometimes worse. I thought of my parents sitting in their designer kitchen, arguing about couch fabric colors, unaware that strangers might soon show up at their door with legal authority and very little patience. I sat back, not to breathe, not to reflect, to make room in my mind for the next fact. Marcus turned the laptop toward me again. Now look at this, he said. A flight booking confirmation, passenger Chloe Vance, departure one way. Destination Milan, departure date 3 weeks away. I imagined her packing silk dresses into suitcases, telling my parents she was going to conquer Europe, telling her followers she was chasing dreams, telling nobody about the crater she'd leave behind. She's running, I said. Marcus nodded. Classic exit plan. Rack up debt, liquidate assets, leave jurisdiction, and the house collateral damage, he said. In every sense of the phrase. I stared at the screen, not at Chloe, at my parents' names under the ownership line, Robert Vance, Martha Vance. 2 people who chose their golden child over the one who came home in a uniform. 2 people who handed me a trash bag and called it family discipline. They had made their choice, but losing a home to criminal lenders wasn't justice. It was fallout. And I wasn't going to let criminals profit from my sister's stupidity. Marcus closed the property records and opened a clean document. We'll build a report, he said. Timeline. Fraud chain, identity misuse, financial crimes, property endangerment, military credential theft. He paused. There's a specific federal statute about misusing a service member's identity for financial gain, he added. Serious offense. I looked at the empty metal box sitting on the kitchen counter. It wasn't sentimental anymore. It was evidence. Marcus dropped the pawn receipt inside the box. Nice container, he said. I allowed myself one small breath of amusement. Next, Marcus said we need to secure your identity. Credit freeze. Fraud alerts. Document every lender. That way, if anyone tries to claim you owe money, the paper trail says otherwise. He worked fast. I watched. Not because I didn't trust him, because I needed to understand every angle of this battlefield. By midnight, my name was protected. My accounts flagged, my financial profile locked down. My parents still had no idea they were sitting on a ticking legal bomb. My sister still thought she'd won. Marcus leaned back and stretched. You realize, he said, this is way beyond small claims court. I know. You'll need official military documentation, service records, award citations, proof of identity, command verification. I nodded. And Marcus said, once this goes formal, it's not just your sister on the line. It's anyone who enabled her. I thought of my mother's quiet voice saying, you'll be fine. You always are. I thought of my father handing me a trash bag, like a hotel checkout bag. I'm aware, I said. Marcus looked at me for a long moment. No hesitation, he said. That's very on brand for you. I almost smiled. Marcus gathered the folders, the screenshots, the records, the report draft. He slid the stack toward me. This is enough to start a federal investigation, he said, especially with the military identity angle. I placed my hand on the top folder. It felt heavier than my deployment bag ever had. But this time I wasn't carrying equipment. I was carrying leverage. Marcus poured fresh coffee into both our mugs. To the quiet hunt, he said. I lifted mine. To not letting idiots destroy everything they touch. Outside, the neighborhood was silent, normal, peaceful. Completely unaware that somewhere inside this small house, a fashion brand was about to collide with federal law-organized lenders, and a soldier who had finally decided to stop absorbing damage and start directing it. I left Marcus's house before sunrise, a folder of evidence on the passenger seat, and coffee I didn't taste in my hand. I didn't call my parents. I didn't text Chloe. I didn't post anything dramatic online. This wasn't the kind of problem solved with vague quotes and sad selfies. I drove straight to the Regional Military Administration office, the kind of building that looks boring on the outside and terrifying on the inside if you've done something stupid involving federal law. The receptionist looked up as I walked in. Name: Elena Vance, former staff sergeant. Her fingers paused on the keyboard. What can we do for you, Sergeant? I need to speak to Colonel James Miller. Her eyes lifted. Do you have an appointment? I placed my service ID on the counter. I think he'll want to see this. She made a call, whispered, looked at me again, then pointed toward a hallway. Office at the end. Go ahead. I walked past framed photos of units' flags, commendations, and motivational slogans that never mentioned family betrayal. My boots sounded steady on the tile. My heartbeat didn't matter. The mission did. Colonel Miller opened his door before I knocked. He was still tall, still square-shouldered, still looked like a man who ironed his soul along with his uniform. Elena, he said. Didn't expect to see you back so soon. I stepped inside and placed the folder on his desk. I need help, I said. He gestured for me to sit. Start from the beginning. I didn't start from the beginning. I started from the facts. My military medals were stolen and sold. My identity was used to take fraudulent loans. My forged signature was used to place a lien on my parents' house. The person responsible is my sister. Here's the evidence. He opened the folder. Pawn receipt, loan documents, signature comparisons, property records, travel booking, Marcus's clean structured report. Colonel Miller read in silence, not reacting, not interrupting, just absorbing. When he reached the page showing the pawn receipt, his jaw tightened slightly. When he reached the forged military ID, used his fingers, paused. When he reached the summary of total fraud amount, he leaned back in his chair. This is serious, he said. Yes, sir, this is not just family conflict, he said. This is criminal misuse of a service member's identity. It's a federal offense, and selling awarded decorations is also a violation. I'm aware, sir. He looked directly at me. Why are you bringing this to me and not civilian police? Because I said this involves military records, military honors, and identity fraud tied to a service member. I was told your office handles that coordination. He nodded once. Correct. He reached for his phone. Within minutes, I watched a chain of calls happen that I knew meant doors were opening that never closed easily. Special investigations, he said into the phone. Yes, I have a case. Yes, verified service member. Yes, documented evidence. He gave my name, my service number, the nature of the crimes. Then he hung up. He turned to me. Elena, once we proceed, this won't stay private. There will be warrants, searches, arrest authority. Your family will be involved. My family is already involved, I said. He studied my face. Not judging, measuring. Are you prepared for the fallout, he asked. I thought of my mother's soft excuses. My father's trash bag, Chloe's slap, my empty metal box. I am, I said. He nodded. Good, he said. Because I'm not letting anyone turn a service member's honor into pawnshop merchandise without consequences. He stood and walked to a locked cabinet, opened it, pulled out forms, real forms. Not online complaint submissions, not customer service tickets, federal forms. He filled them out with practice speed, typed into a secure terminal, printed documents with barcodes and watermarks. This is a request for emergency search and seizure authorization, he said. This is a request for arrest warrants for fraud, identity theft, and theft of military property. He slid the papers across the desk. Sign here to confirm your statement. I signed. My real signature. Clean, clear, legible. He placed his own signature beneath mine. Then he stamped the pages. Not symbolically, officially, he picked up the phone again. Legal office, he said. Warrants authorized. Yes, execute with federal coordination. He hung up and looked at me. You understand, he said, once these are served, there's no negotiating, no family intervention, no quiet settlement. I'm not looking for quiet, I said. He gave a small nod. There's one more thing, he said. Because this involves stolen military honors, I will personally accompany the execution team. Not as your former commander, as a representative of the service. I didn't ask him to. He didn't need convincing. Some lines mattered to him. He picked up the warrants and placed them in a leather folder. He stood straight, buttoned his jacket. We'll time this carefully, he said. We don't rush. We wait until the subject is present and public. Maximum compliance. Minimum risk. I knew exactly what that meant. He didn't need to say more. I didn't need to ask. We walked out of the office side by side. A soldier who had lost her medals, a colonel who took that personally, and in a quiet suburb, a family still sipping lattes and planning fashion launches had no idea that legal gravity had already locked onto their front door. I told Colonel Miller I needed one final move before the warrants landed. He didn't ask why, he just said, keep it clean, and handed me a spare contact number for the federal team assigned to the case. I drove back to my parents' neighborhood in my old car, the one that didn't match the vibe. I parked across the street and watched the house for 10 minutes. Same white SUV in the garage, same ring light glowing upstairs. Same illusion of control. I walked to the front door and rang the bell. My mother opened it like she'd been waiting for a delivery. Elena, she said, surprised but not thrilled. I lowered my eyes slightly. Soft posture, lower energy. No uniform, just jeans, a plain shirt, and a face that looked tired enough to be believable. I'm sorry, I said. Can I come in? Her shoulders relaxed immediately. My mother always responded better to surrender than truth. She stepped aside. Of course, sweetheart. Inside, Chloe was on the couch scrolling through her phone while a stylist adjusted a dress on a mannequin. My father sat at the kitchen island with coffee and the newspaper like yesterday never happened. Chloe looked up. Well, she said. Look who came crawling back. I kept my voice quiet. I shouldn't have raised my voice. I was exhausted. I overreacted. My father nodded like a judge pleased with a confession. My mother touched my arm. We knew you'd cool off, Chloe smirked. So, you ready to be supportive now? I nodded once. Good, she said. Because I need help tonight. I'm throwing a small engagement party, important people. I need someone to handle Coates Drink's small tasks. You can do that. My mother smiled like this was reconciliation. My father said, That's nice, Elena, nice. I swallowed and said I'd like to help. Chloe waved a hand. Great, just don't wear that military thing. It kills the vibe. I understand, I said. She didn't look up again. I moved through the house, slowly reacquainting myself with its layout. Not like a daughter returning home. Like a technician mapping a site. I went upstairs to what used to be my room. Now it was Chloe's studio. I stood in the doorway for a moment, letting her see I wasn't trying to hide. I'll stay out of your way, I said. She waved her hand again. Just don't touch anything. I nodded. Then I closed the door behind me. The room was loud with fabric lights, perfume, and arrogance, but underneath it was still my room, Same window, same closet space, same corner where the floorboard creaked. I opened my backpack and took out a small pouch Marcus had given me that morning. Inside were 3 legal evidence-grade micro-recorders and 2 flexible inspection cameras used by security teams. Nothing dramatic, nothing sci-fi. Just tools that did one job: record reality. I didn't narrate what I was doing. I didn't explain to myself how clever I was. I just worked. One camera went behind the large mirror facing Chloe's makeup table. One went near the ceiling corner overlooking the seating area. A recorder went inside a decorative speaker shell. Another inside a hollow fashion award trophy. The last stayed in my pocket, already recording. No wires, no blinking lights, no spy movie nonsense. Just quiet devices in a house that already had too many gadgets to notice one more. I stepped back and looked around. Normal, clean, untouched. I left the room. Downstairs, my mother was arranging hors d'oeuvres on silver trays. My father was polishing wine glasses. Chloe's stylist was rushing back and forth with garment bags. No one asked where I'd been. No one wondered what I was doing. I took my place near the front door just like Chloe ordered. Coat rack, greeting roll, invisible labor, perfect camouflage. Guests began arriving around 7. Men in expensive suits, women in dresses that cost more than my monthly military pay. Laughter, perfume, handshakes, air kisses, shallow compliments. Chloe floated through them like a queen who'd never lost a battle. Then her fiancé arrived. Tall, clean, sharp suit, expensive watch, real estate developer energy. The kind of man who said words like portfolio and synergy without irony. He kissed Chloe. She laughed loudly. My parents glowed with pride. No one noticed me taking coats. No one noticed the recorder in my pocket. Later, Chloe and her fiancé stepped into the studio room. I watched them go, then waited 10 seconds and walked past the doorway slow, carrying a tray of drinks. Inside, they didn't see me, didn't hear me, didn't care. They were too busy talking. Once the last transfer clears, we're done here, Chloe said. I didn't stop walking, just slowed. My parents will be fine, she continued. They can go to some assisted living place, cheap one. I'll send money when I feel like it. Her fiancé laughed. You're ruthless. I'm efficient, she said. Sentimental people stay poor. I kept moving, no pause, no suspicious behavior, just a tray carrier doing her job. Back downstairs, I set the tray down and leaned against the wall, quiet. The devices were doing the rest. Voices, plans, admissions, intent. All captured cleanly, legally admissible, time-stamped, stored. At one point, my mother walked past me and whispered, I'm glad you're being helpful again. I smiled softly. Helpful, yes. The party rolled on. Music, toasts, engagement announcement, applause, champagne. Chloe raised a glass and thanked everyone for believing in her dream. I watched her from across the room, not angry, not emotional, just aware that every word she'd said upstairs was already recorded, filed, backed up, waiting. Later, as guests continued laughing and planning futures built on other people's money, I stood by the coat rack holding someone's designer jacket and thought how strange it was that a house could be so full of noise and still be walking straight into silence. I stood at the front door holding coats that cost more than my car, listening to laughter echo through a house that was seconds away from changing ownership of reality. The recorders were done. The cameras had everything. Chloe's voice, her plan, her certainty that she was untouchable. I didn't rush. I didn't storm upstairs. I didn't announce anything. I waited. Because timing is everything when you want the truth to hit without resistance. At 8:17 p.m., Chloe clinked her champagne glass with a spoon. The room quieted. Guests turned toward her. My parents moved closer, smiling like proud shareholders in a company that was already insolvent. Chloe lifted her glass. I just want to thank everyone, she said. Tonight is special, not just because of my engagement, but because this brand is finally becoming what I always knew it could be. Applause, phones raised, stories recorded. The perfect moment for curated happiness. That's when the front door opened behind me. Not a polite opening, a firm, controlled entry. I stepped aside. Colonel Miller walked in first. Full dress uniform, medals on his chest, command presence that didn't need volume. 2 federal agents followed, then another, then a uniformed officer from local law enforcement for jurisdictional protocol. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A woman dropped her champagne flute. It didn't break. It just rolled on the marble floor like a countdown timer. Chloe froze. My father blinked rapidly. My mother clutched her pearls literally. Colonel Miller's voice carried without shouting. "Good evening," he said. "This is a lawful execution of federal warrants. Please remain where you are." Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some stepped back. Some pulled out phones again, but slower this time. Chloe recovered fast. She always did. "What is this?" she snapped. "Who are you, Colonel?" Miller looked at her like she was a civilian, asking why gravity existed. "My name is Colonel James Miller," he said. "United States Army. I am here regarding the illegal sale of military decorations and identity fraud involving a service member." Chloe's eyes darted to me. I stepped forward. Not fast, not dramatic. Just forward. This time I was in full dress blues, no medals on my chest, just empty ribbon space, a uniform waiting for something that had been stolen. Murmurs spread through the guests. Chloe's voice rose. "This is insane. She's bitter. She hates my success." Colonel Miller didn't look at her yet. He looked at me. "Staff Sergeant Elena Vance," he said, voice formal. "Is this the individual named in the evidence package?" "Yes, sir," I said. He turned to the agents. "Proceed." One agent stepped forward with a folded document. "Chloe Vance," he said, "you are under arrest for identity theft, financial fraud, theft of military property, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Chloe laughed once, loud, disbelieving. "You're joking," she said. "This is a prank. For content, right?" No one laughed with her. The agent stepped closer and reached for her wrists. Chloe pulled back. "Get off me." My mother stepped between them. "Please," she said. "There must be some misunderstanding. She's just a girl trying to build something." Colonel Miller finally looked at my mother. "Ma'am," he said, "your daughter used forged military credentials and fraudulent documentation to obtain over $100,000 in loans and placed your home as collateral without lawful authorization." My father's mouth opened slightly. What he said. One of the agents held out another document. "This is the lien filing on your property," he said, "signed under a forged power of attorney in your daughter's favor." My father took the paper with shaking hands. My mother read over his shoulder. Their faces collapsed in real time. Chloe saw it happen and snapped. "You said they'd never check," she hissed at her fiancé. He took a slow step backward. "Chloe," he said, "you told me everything was clean." She turned to him. "It is clean," she said. "They're lying." He looked at the colonel, then at the agents, then at the documents. He didn't say another word. He walked away, out the door, into a future that no longer included her. Chloe's breath hitched. "No," she said. "Wait, come back." He didn't. One of the agents nodded to another. "Ma'am," he said to Chloe, "turn around, hands behind your back." Chloe looked at my parents. They didn't move, didn't speak, didn't save her, not because they chose me, because there was no way to save her anymore. Chloe turned slowly, handcuffs clicked. A sound so small yet louder than the party music that still played awkwardly in the background until someone finally turned it off. Silence fell. Colonel Miller stepped forward again. "If anyone here has received funds, gifts, or financial benefits from fraudulent loans tied to this case, I suggest you contact legal counsel," he said to the room. "This event is now part of an active investigation." Guests began edging toward the door, not running, not screaming, just quietly distancing themselves from contamination. My mother sat down heavily on a chair. My father held the lien document like it might explode. Chloe turned her head toward me, wrists bound. "You did this," she said. "You ruined everything." I met her eyes. "No," I said. "You did." One agent guided her toward the door. She resisted at first, then stopped, pride shifting into survival mode. As she passed me, she leaned in close. "You think you've won?" she whispered. "You'll always be the boring one." I looked at her empty wrists where expensive bracelets used to sit. "And you'll finally have time to work on your brand," I said. "Very exclusive audience." She jerked her head away. The door closed behind them. Cars pulled away outside. Guests disappeared. The party ended not with a farewell toast, but with the sound of engines and hurried shoes. In the living room, my parents remained frozen. My mother stared at me. "Elena," she said, "why didn't you tell us any of this was happening?" I looked at the empty champagne glasses, the scattered coats, the fallen invitations with Chloe's name printed in gold. "You told me to leave," I said. "So I did." My father swallowed hard. "What happens now?" he asked. I didn't answer immediately. because for the first time since coming home, the house was quiet enough to hear truth settling into the walls. And nothing in this house would ever feel the same again. The house didn't feel victorious after the agents left. It felt hollow, like a stage after the audience has gone home and the lights are still on. My parents sat in silence. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. My father stared at the lean document like it was written in a language he never learned. I took off my dress uniform jacket and laid it over the back of a chair. The empty space on my chest where medals should have been felt lighter than before, not heavier. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Elena," he said, "we didn't know about the loans, the house, any of it." I looked at him. "You didn't know because you didn't ask," I said. My mother's voice trembled. "She told us the paperwork was for business taxes, for investors. We trusted her." I nodded once. "And when I came home in uniform, I said you told me not to upset her mood." My mother closed her eyes. My father's shoulders sank. The silence this time wasn't avoidance. It was understanding arriving late and with interest. My father rubbed his forehead. "What happens to us now?" he asked. I told him the truth. Federal investigators will review the loans. If the house was placed as collateral fraudulently, the lien will be challenged. It won't be fast, but you won't lose the house because of her crimes. My mother exhaled shakily. "And Chloe?" she asked. "She will have legal counsel," I said. "She will answer to the court, not to us." My mother's lip quivered. "She's still our daughter." I didn't argue. I didn't comfort. I just said I was your daughter too. My mother looked at me then. Really looked. Not the problem solver, not the quiet one, not the one who could handle anything. Just her child, standing in front of her, in a house that had never once asked what she needed. My mother whispered, "I'm sorry." My father nodded slowly. "So am I," he said. I accepted the words, not as healing, not as forgiveness, just acknowledgement. I picked up the empty wooden metal box from the coffee table. "I'll be back tomorrow to collect my remaining things," I said. "After that, I won't be staying here." My father opened his mouth to object, then closed it. He knew he had no leverage left. I walked to the door. My mother followed me. "Elena," she said, "where will you go?" I paused with my hand on the knob. "I'll be fine," I said. "I always am." This time I said it for myself, not for them. Outside, the night air felt clean, honest, not perfumed, not staged, just real. I drove back to Marcus's house. He opened the door without asking questions. Saw my face, nodded once. "Coffee?" he asked. "Yes," I said. We sat at his kitchen table. I slid the empty metal box toward him. "I need these back," I said. "Not for me, for the record." He nodded. "Evidence recovery will handle it. Pawnshop inventory gets seized. You'll get them returned once verified." I leaned back in the chair. Not relieved, not triumphant, just complete. Over the next weeks, things moved without my presence. Court filings, investigations, insurance claims, fraud reversals, creditors retreating like tidewater pulled by a moon they didn't understand. My parents hired a lawyer, learned how close they'd come to losing everything, learned that love without boundaries is just negligence in a nicer outfit. Chloe's brand disappeared overnight, website down, social media locked, sponsors vanished, engagement ended, flights canceled. No dramatic revenge scenes, no viral confession videos, just the slow, inevitable grind of accountability. 3 months later, I received a call from the federal investigator. "Your medals have been recovered," he said. "They're ready for pickup." I drove to the evidence facility, signed forms, presented ID, waited. A clerk returned carrying my wooden box, now heavy again. Inside lay my bronze star, my purple heart, my ribbons, my citations. Not trophies, not decorations. Proof that my life had meaning even when my family didn't see it. I didn't cry, I didn't kiss them. I just closed the box gently and walked out. 2 weeks after that, I registered a nonprofit organization. Name, the Stand Fast Project. Purpose: support for veterans displaced or financially exploited by family members. Emergency housing, legal consultation, identity protection services, peer counseling. Marcus built the website. A retired judge I once served security for became our legal advisor. Donations came quietly. Veterans helped veterans. No branding, no influencer campaigns. Just work. I didn't return to my parents' house. We spoke occasionally, Short calls, polite distance. They visited Chloe in detention while her case moved through the system. They didn't ask me to visit. I didn't offer. One Sunday afternoon, I sat in my small rented apartment, coffee on the table, metal box on the shelf, laptop open to the nonprofit dashboard, showing another veteran safely housed. No mansion, no marble floors, no ring lights, just peace. I realized something simple. Family isn't blood. Family is who doesn't sell your honor for a vacation. And sometimes the strongest thing a soldier can do isn't survive a battlefield. It's walk away from a home that never knew their worth. So let me ask you something. If someone you loved crossed a line that cost you your dignity, your security, or your future, would you fight to fix them, or would you choose to save yourself instead? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe if you want more stories where justice isn't loud, but inevitable. I used to believe family meant unlimited loyalty, not loyalty with conditions, not loyalty with contracts, just blind automatic permanent allegiance. If someone had asked me a year ago what I'd do for my family, I would have said anything without hesitation. I thought that made me honorable, strong, reliable. Turns out it just made me convenient. I didn't lose my medals because my sister was clever. I lost them because no one in that house believed she should ever hear the word no. Some families don't raise a golden child. They raise a demolition expert and hand them the keys. Looking back, the signs were never subtle. Chloe broke something I was told to understand. Chloe crossed a line I was told not to escalate. Chloe needed money, space, attention, sympathy. The answer was always yes. And if I hesitated, I was reminded that I was the strong one. Strength became my job description, and Chloe's lack of boundaries became her business model. Here's the truth I learned the hard way. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's permission. Permission to take. Permission to excuse. Permission to repeat the same harm with better lighting and a nicer apology. A lot of people grow up in families like this. One person is always forgiven first. Another is always expected to absorb the damage. If you're listening to this and thinking, that sounds familiar, you're not alone. There are warning signs most people ignore for years. One family member is always going through something no matter how much damage they cause. When they mess up, the conversation becomes about their stress, their dreams, their potential, never the consequences. Another family member is always told to be mature, be patient, or not make a big deal. Money, space, time, and emotional energy are treated like shared property, but accountability is private. If you ever heard the phrase, "that's just how they are," after being hurt, lied to, or exploited, that's not love. That's training. I didn't see it clearly until the night I was handed a trash bag with my clothes and told to leave. Not because I did something wrong, but because I disrupted Chloe's comfort. That's when I realized, in that house, peace wasn't built on respect. It was built on my silence. And silence is not peace. It's unpaid labor. Some people think setting boundaries in family is cruel, disrespectful, ungrateful, especially in cultures where family loyalty is treated like a sacred law. But boundaries are not punishment. Boundaries are structure. A child without boundaries grows into an adult who believes consequences are for other people. A family without boundaries becomes a playground for the most selfish person in the room. I learned that love without limits doesn't make someone feel safe. It makes them reckless. Because if nothing ever stops them, they never learn where the cliff edge is until they're already falling. If my parents had said no to Chloe the first time she crossed a line, none of what happened would have reached federal court. But saying no requires discomfort. And some families would rather burn down the house than sit through an uncomfortable conversation. So let's get practical, because reflection without action is just another form of entertainment. If you see yourself in any part of my story, here are real steps that protect you long before things explode. First, protect your documents, your ID, your passport, your social security number, your financial records. Don't assume family means safe access. Love and access are not the same thing. Second, separate your finances. If someone has your bank login, change it. If someone can sign on your behalf, revoke it. Shared money without shared responsibility always ends badly. Third, learn to say no without a 5-paragraph explanation. A simple, "I'm not comfortable with that" is enough. If someone demands a long justification for your boundaries, they don't respect them. Fourth, pay attention to patterns, not promises. Anyone can apologize once. Boundaries are built by behavior that changes, not speeches that repeat. And here's the part that's hardest for many people. Setting boundaries with family doesn't make you unloving. It makes you an adult. I didn't walk away from my family because I hated them. I walked away because I finally respected myself enough to stop playing a role that only existed to keep someone else comfortable. Some people stay in toxic family systems because they're afraid of being alone. But loneliness is quieter than exploitation. And peace is better than chaos, disguised as love. Today I still talk to my parents. We're polite, we're civil, but the old structure is gone. There is no automatic access to my time, my resources, or my emotional energy. Because love without boundaries nearly cost me my identity, my financial future, and my safety, and I won't repeat that lesson twice. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this: you don't owe unlimited access to anyone, even people who share your last name. Respect is not a reward, it's a requirement. And sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is say, "This stops with me," so I'll leave you with a question. If setting boundaries in your family meant someone calling you selfish, dramatic, or ungrateful, but it also meant protecting your peace, your future, and your dignity, would you still do it? People used to call me strong, not because I lifted heavy things, not because I led teams in difficult situations, not because I wore a uniform. They called me strong because I didn't complain, I didn't argue, I didn't demand attention, I didn't fall apart when things were unfair. And for a long time I thought that was a compliment. Now I understand it was a convenient label. Because when a family finds someone who can absorb pressure without breaking, they start stacking weight on that person, quietly, gradually, until the strong one becomes the shock absorber for everyone else's bad behavior. I was the one who adjusted, the one who forgave, the one who understood, the one who made myself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. That wasn't strength. That was slow self-erasure. Some of you listening know exactly what I mean. You grew up being told you were mature for your age. Responsible, easy, low maintenance, the kid who didn't cause trouble, the sibling who didn't need much. Sounds positive on the surface, but underneath it often means one thing. No one learned how to take care of you because you learned how to take care of everyone else. I was deployed in dangerous places, but the most exhausting battlefield I ever stood on was my own living room. Because there I had to earn the right to exist peacefully. I had to earn respect that was never actually offered. I had to swallow anger that should have been listened to. I had to carry hurt that was never mine to hold. And when I finally spoke up, I was called dramatic. When I asked for accountability, I was told I was ruining the mood. When I pointed out wrongdoing, I was told I was hurting the family. That's a pattern many families run on. The person who causes harm is protected. The person who names the harm is blamed. And here's the part that hits hardest. Enduring abuse is not strength. It's survival mode. Real strength is recognizing when survival mode has become your entire personality and deciding that your life deserves more than just coping. I didn't become strong the day I walked out with a trash bag in my back seat. I became strong the day I realized I didn't have to earn my right to be treated with basic respect. That shift changes everything, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing things. How often you apologize when you've done nothing wrong. How often you justify someone else's behavior. How often you say, "It's fine," when it's clearly not. How often you minimize your own needs so no one feels uncomfortable. If that sounds familiar, I want to say this clearly. You are not strong because you endure mistreatment. You are strong because you have the capacity to stop. And stopping doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like small, quiet decisions, not answering every call, not giving every explanation, not offering every dollar, not showing up to every argument you're invited to. Independence isn't just financial, it's emotional. So let's get practical again, because strength without tools is just motivation waiting to fade. If you're in a family system where you're always the one expected to hold everything together, here are real-world steps that help you reclaim your footing. First, build a support system outside your family. Friends, coworkers, veteran groups, therapy, online communities, anyone who sees you as a whole person, not a role. Family shouldn't be your only source of connection. That's how dependence becomes a trap. Second, create physical independence where possible. Even if it's a small space, even if it's temporary, a place where you can close a door and breathe without being monitored, judged, or recruited into someone else's crisis. Third, learn to tolerate guilt without obeying it. When you stop playing your old role, people will call you selfish, cold, changed, difficult. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It means the system lost its easiest worker. Fourth, understand that leaving is not cruelty. Some environments cannot be fixed from the inside. Sometimes the healthiest conversation you can have is distance. When I left that house, I didn't do it with a speech. I didn't slam doors. I didn't announce ultimatums. I just removed myself from a structure that required me to shrink. And here's something no one tells you. When you step out of a toxic role, you don't immediately feel free. At first, you feel empty, because your identity was built around managing other people's emotions. When that stops, there's silence, space, room, and in that space, you start discovering who you actually are when no one needs you to perform. That's when real strength begins. Not the strength of endurance, the strength of choice. I didn't build a new life because I wanted revenge. I built it because I finally understood that loyalty without dignity is just submission wearing a friendly name. And I decided I wasn't going to live that way again. So if you've ever been told, "You're strong, you'll handle it," when what they really meant was, "We don't want to deal with this, want you to hear this." You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to disappoint people who benefit from your silence. You are allowed to walk away from roles that were assigned to you, not chosen by you. Because real strength isn't how much you can endure. Real strength is knowing when you've endured enough. I didn't build a new life to prove anyone wrong. I built it so I'd never need their approval again. For a while after everything happened, people expected me to feel triumphant, like I'd won some dramatic war. Like justice meant I should walk away smiling, chest out medals, shining theme music playing in the background. Real life doesn't work like that. When the noise stopped, when the court filings were submitted, when Chloe was in custody, and my parents were left staring at the wreckage, there was no victory parade. There was just quiet. And in that quiet, I had a choice. I could let what happened turn me into someone bitter, someone who trusted no one, someone who saw every relationship as a potential threat, someone who built walls so high no one could reach me again. That was the easy option. Pain loves company, bitterness loves to feel justified. And I had plenty of justification, but I'd spent too many years living inside someone else's dysfunction. I wasn't going to build a new life that still revolved around what they did to me, so I made a different choice. I turned pain into structure. Structure is what saved me in the military. Systems, protocols, clear rules, clear consequences, clear accountability. When something goes wrong, you don't just cry about it. You fix the process so it doesn't happen again. I applied the same mindset to my life. First, I looked at what had actually happened to me, not the emotions, not the betrayal story, the concrete events. My identity had been stolen, my finances had been put at risk, my housing security had been threatened, my military honors had been illegally sold. So I asked myself a simple question: if this could happen to me, how many other veterans were going through the same thing silently? The answer was uncomfortable, a lot. Veterans whose families controlled their benefits. Veterans whose credit was quietly destroyed by relatives. Veterans who came home to find their savings drained. Veterans who were emotionally manipulated because they were trained to endure, not complain. No one talks about that side of service. The part where you survive deployment only to come home to a different kind of ambush. So instead of sitting in anger, I built something, a small nonprofit. No flashy branding, no dramatic mission statements, just practical services. Emergency housing connections for veterans who needed to leave unsafe family situations. Legal consultations for identity and financial abuse. Workshops on protecting documents and credit. Peer support groups where no one had to explain why family wasn't automatically safe. No savior complex, no revenge fantasy, just systems that solved real problems. Because pain without direction becomes bitterness. Pain with structure becomes purpose. And here's something important: I didn't build this to be inspirational. I built it because I didn't want what happened to me to be just a tragedy story someone listens to and forgets. If something bad happens to you and nothing changes afterward, it's just suffering. If something bad happens to you and you build something that prevents it for others, it becomes meaning. That's the difference. I still have my medals now. They sit in a simple wooden box on a shelf, not displayed, not worshipped, not used for sympathy. They're just there. A reminder that my value was never defined by how my family treated me. It was defined by what I did when I realized the truth. And that's the part I want to pass on to you. You don't have to turn your pain into a public project. You don't have to start an organization. You don't have to post motivational speeches. But you can do 3 simple things with any difficult experience. First, name it accurately. Not "my family is complicated." Not "it wasn't that bad." Not "I'm probably overreacting." Call it what it is: exploitation, manipulation, neglect, betrayal, whatever fits. When you name something correctly, you stop gaslighting yourself. Second, build one boundary that didn't exist before. Maybe it's separate finances, maybe it's locked documents, maybe it's fewer phone calls, maybe it's saying "I can't help with that" without apologizing. One structural change is worth more than 1,000 emotional promises. Third, share what you've learned with one person who needs it. Not to fix them, not to rescue them, just to let them know they're not crazy for seeing what they see. That's how quiet revolutions start. Not with explosions, with someone saying, "That happened to me too," and realizing they're not alone. I didn't choose the family I was born into, but I chose the life I built after them. I chose peace over chaos, structure over drama, accountability over blind loyalty, self-respect over forced endurance. And I'm not special for doing that. Anyone can. If they decide that their story doesn't end where someone else broke it. So before we close, I want to ask you something personal. If protecting your peace, your future, and your dignity meant disappointing people who expect unlimited access to you, would you still choose yourself? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want more stories where survival turns into strength and chaos turns into structure, subscribe to the channel and stay with us.
Final note. This story is a work of fiction created by artificial intelligence to heighten drama and emotion. But the valuable lessons we discuss are entirely real and continue to happen to many people every day. If this style isn't for you, that's perfectly okay. Please feel free to look for other content that better suits your needs.